We have all heard the saying, silence is golden, and everyone understands that sometimes silence speaks louder than 1,000 words. In this noisy world, we often seek to add words to express ourselves, explain ourselves, or simply to make the environment more lively. However, there is a truth that few notice. Sometimes, silence is the key that opens doors to creativity, tranquility, and peaceful living. But why does silence possess such immense power? Silence and its mysticism. Imagine a situation. You are sitting in a cafe. Music is playing, and people are chatting away. Suddenly, amidst all this noise, you feel an unnamed loneliness. That feeling, despite being in a space full of sound, makes you realize more clearly than ever that sometimes silence is what truly makes you feel alive. A quiet moment can cause you to reflect on life and discover answers that the clamor of the world can never provide. The truth is that silence is an essential part of our lives, whether we are aware of it or not. When we stop speaking, we are not simply doing nothing. We are opening up space for contemplation, for listening, and for a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Silence, a skill few possess. There is a saying in England, empty vessels make the most noise, still waters run deep. This saying not only reminds us to avoid excessive talking, but also carries a profound message about restraint in speech. For many, silence is not easy because, in modern society, we are often swept up in endless conversations, hasty words, and quick judgments. But it is in moments of silence that we can truly discover our inner strength. To wield this power, one must learn self-control. Imagine you are in a heated argument with someone. The urge to defeat them with words is overwhelming. But if you can stay silent in that moment, you will not only avoid further conflict, but also create space for the other person to reflect. And perhaps, by staying silent, you may be the true victor. When silence does not mean inaction. Many believe that silence means doing nothing, but in reality, silence is a powerful action. It is a way to show attentiveness and respect for others. When you remain silent, you are creating space to listen, to feel, and to better understand what is happening around you. One of the wonderful things about silence is that it is not just the external stillness, but also the inner peace. In relationships, especially during conflicts, silence becomes a powerful tool. When you choose not to speak during tense moments, you allow yourself to calm, and you also provide the other person with an opportunity to reconsider their words and actions. This silence is not a sign of weakness, but an expression of strength and patience. Silence helps us listen to ourselves. Silence not only allows us to hear others, but also helps us listen to ourselves. The less we speak, the more we can connect with our inner selves and gain a deeper understanding of our emotions and thoughts. The ability to listen to ourselves in silence is a vital skill, especially in today's world where external noise often overwhelms us. Have you ever felt lost in life? Perhaps you are chasing goals without truly understanding why. When you take the time to be silent and stop all the external noise, you can feel what you truly want and what really matters to you. This is a part of creativity and personal growth. Silence creates creative space. Many writers, artists, and other creators believe that they need a quiet space to come up with new ideas. Silence not only reduces distractions, but also stimulates the mind to develop creative thoughts. A peaceful environment is where you can discover the unexplored. Connect the dots in your mind. A famous writer once shared that he writes best when there is no noise around him, simply because in silence, his mind can soar freely, connecting ideas without being distracted by external influences. Silence improves our health. Silence not only enhances the spirit, but also has a positive effect on our physical health. Studies show that quiet can help reduce stress, regulate heart rate, and improve sleep quality. On the other hand, excessive noise can lead to serious health problems like high blood pressure, anxiety, and decreased focus. If you are feeling stressed after a long day, instead of watching TV or scrolling through social media, try spending some time in silence. Sit in a quiet space, breathe deeply, and you will feel a change in your body. From your breath to your mood, silence creates a more peaceful world. Finally, Silence can help create peace not only in our lives, but also in our communities and even the world. When we refrain from speaking harsh or hurtful words, we contribute to building an environment of peace and respect. Silence is how we reduce conflict and maintain balance. In meetings or personal relationships, when you control your speech and refrain from reacting hastily, you will find that silence helps maintain harmony and avoid unnecessary misunderstandings. Silence is not the absence of noise, but the presence of deep thought, sincere emotions, and respect. Sometimes, silence is the only answer needed. In this noisy world, if we learn to value the power of silence, we will find true peace and connection with ourselves and others. Try silence, and you will find that life becomes much clearer. Silence in family relationships. In many families, arguments and disagreements are unavoidable. However, silence can be a wonderful way to calm the atmosphere and prevent the conflict from escalating. In Western families, it is common for parents and children to argue about lifestyle choices, career paths, or even small decisions in daily life. Especially when children grow up and begin to make independent decisions, parents may feel anxious and want to intervene. However, instead of reacting immediately with criticism, silence can help parents avoid forcing their children and create space for their maturity and autonomy. In this case, silence is a way to show respect for their children's growth and to help keep the family atmosphere harmonious. Silence also allows both sides to reflect before saying something that could hurt each other. Suppose a family is having dinner, and a sudden argument breaks out over a sensitive topic. Instead of continuing to speak, those involved can choose to remain silent for a moment. This is not a sign of weakness, but a way to cool things down and reduce tension. Silence in such moments signals that everyone needs time to think and calm down before responding. Silence in marriage relationships. In marriage, there are moments when silence is not only necessary, but also a way of expressing love and respect for each other. One common situation in the West is couples arguing about everyday issues, such as finances, child rearing, or major life decisions. Typically, a disagreement can quickly become tense, and words can become dangerous weapons. However, instead of continuing the argument or raising voices, silence can be a way for both spouses to pause and reflect. When one spouse feels exhausted or hurt, instead of continuing to react, the other may choose silence, giving the other space to calm down. Silence here helps both sides avoid harmful words and paves the way for a healthier conversation once emotions have settled. Silence in political debates. In the U.S., political debates often lead to conflict and discord. In such situations, silence can be a way to keep the peace. You don't have to engage in every debate or offer your opinion on every issue, especially when you know that it will only lead to fruitless arguments. Silence in this context is not only avoiding a dispute, but also maintaining respect for those who have differing views. Silence in romantic relationships. In romantic relationships, sometimes silence is far more important than words. A partner may not need advice or solutions from you, but simply want you to listen. Sometimes, they just want to share their feelings without expecting a response, and your silence in that moment becomes a healing balm for their heart. Silence in such situations does not mean indifference. It is deep understanding, allowing the other person to feel safe and loved without needing to say anything more. In those moments, silence helps avoid conflict, listen, and connect hearts, creating peace and understanding between two people. Silence in family relationships. In many families, arguments and disagreements are inevitable. However, silence can be a wonderful way to calm the atmosphere and prevent conflicts from escalating. In Western families, it is common for parents and children to argue over lifestyle choices, career paths, or even small daily decisions, particularly when children grow up and begin to make independent decisions. Parents may feel anxious and want to intervene. However, rather than reacting immediately with criticism, silence can help parents avoid forcing their children and create space for their maturity and autonomy. In such cases, silence is a way to show respect for the child's growth and to foster a more harmonious family environment. Silence also allows both parties to reflect before saying anything that might cause harm. For example, if a family is having dinner and a sudden argument breaks out over a sensitive topic, instead of continuing to speak, the participants may choose to remain silent for a moment. This is not a sign of weakness, but a way to cool down, ease tension, and allow everyone time to think before responding. Silence in such moments can serve as a signal that everyone needs time to reflect, calm their emotions, and collect their thoughts before offering a response. Silence in marital relationships. In marriage, there are times when silence is not only necessary but also a way to express love and respect for the other person. One common situation in Western marriages is when couples argue over everyday issues, such as finances, raising children, or major life decisions. Typically, an argument can quickly become heated, and words may turn into dangerous weapons. However, instead of continuing the debate or shouting, silence can help both spouses stop and reflect. When one partner feels exhausted or hurt, rather than continuing to react, the other can choose silence to give their partner space to calm down. Silence here helps both sides avoid hurtful words and allows for a healthier conversation once emotions have cooled down. Silence when you disagree but still respect the other person. In Western culture, many couples pride themselves on having an equal relationship and often argue over differing opinions. However, sometimes one partner realizes that arguing is leading nowhere. Silence in such situations does not mean ignoring the issue, but rather showing respect for the other's viewpoint, while also giving oneself space to think and make decisions more carefully. Silence in social communication in America and the West. In everyday life, Americans and people from Western cultures sometimes place great importance on maintaining silence in certain social situations. Not speaking immediately, especially when you are unsure of what to say, demonstrates self-respect and wisdom. Silence in political debates. In the United States, political debates often lead to conflicts and disagreements. In such situations, silence can be a way to maintain peace. You do not have to engage in every debate or voice your opinion on every issue, especially when you know that doing so will only lead to useless arguments. Silence here is not just about avoiding confrontation, but also about maintaining respect for those with differing views. In romantic relationships, silence can be more powerful than words. Sometimes, in a romantic relationship, silence is far more important than speaking. A partner may not need advice or solutions, but only someone who will listen to them. Sometimes, they simply want to share their emotions without expecting a response, and your silence in those moments will be a healing balm for their heart. Silence here does not signify indifference, but a deep understanding that allows the other person to feel safe and loved without needing to say anything more. In such moments, silence can prevent conflict, listen deeply, and connect souls, creating peace and mutual understanding between the two. Silence, with an attitude of empathy and love, will make the relationship stronger and deeper. The story of the Buddha's disciples, Ananda and Sariputta. One day, the two disciples of the Buddha, Ananda and Sariputta, began to argue over a philosophical issue. Both felt they were right and were unwilling to compromise. Their argument grew increasingly intense, and other disciples in the monastic community also began to feel the tension. When the Buddha entered, instead of intervening immediately, he stood silently for a moment, gazing at each disciple's face. His silence created an unusual stillness, a powerful presence without words. After a long silence, the Buddha gently spoke. When the water is stirred, the bottom cannot be seen, but when the water becomes still, clarity will return. These words made Ananda and Sariputta realize that their argument was only complicating the matter, and that they needed to stop and reflect more deeply. Eventually, they reconciled and continued their path of practice in peace and understanding. Lesson: the Buddha's silence helped the disciples realize that in stillness and quietness, the truth becomes clearer. The story of the Buddha and Kisa Gautami seeking revenge. One day, a woman named Kisa Gautami, grieving the death of her son, came to the Buddha seeking a remedy for her immense sorrow, hoping for a miracle to bring her child back to life. She had sought out healers and remedies without success. Finally, when all hope seemed lost, she decided to approach the Buddha. She heard that the Buddha could perform miracles, and she hoped he would save her son. When Kisagatami met the Buddha, she cried out, "Master, please save my son. He has died, and I cannot live without him. Please help me." The Buddha looked at her with compassion but did not respond immediately. He remained silent for a long while. Then, he spoke, "I can help you, but first, you must do something for me." Kisagatami looked at the Buddha, hoping for a miracle to bring her son back. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. The Buddha replied, "Find me a mustard seed from any household that has never known the death of a loved one." Kisagatami did not understand right away, but in her grief and confusion, she hurried to every house in the village, asking for a mustard seed and inquiring which family had never experienced the death of a loved one. However, no family could provide her with such a seed. After some time, Kisagatami stopped and pondered. She realized that there was no family in the world that had never experienced the death of a loved one. No one could escape loss. Kisagatami returned to the Buddha, and when she looked at him, her tears had ceased. The Buddha gazed at her with kindness and said, "Kisagatami, have you found the answer?" Kisagatami understood that death was inevitable, a part of the cycle of life. She could not change this truth, and thus, she began to accept it. The Buddha's teaching, all beings must face death. When we understand the truth of death, we will learn to let go of our suffering. Silence is not rejection, but a profound awareness that life is temporary, and acceptance of this truth leads to liberation. Silence before action. When Kisagatami came to the Buddha for help, he did not immediately answer or give advice. He remained silent, giving her space to think and discover life's lesson for herself. Silence creates space for understanding. The Buddha's silence was not only stillness, but a waiting, preparing Kisagatami's mind to calm down and receive the lesson. He did not force her to understand immediately, but allowed her to experience and realize that death is unavoidable. Silence as a teaching tool. The Buddha did not need to explain at length through silence. He created space for Kisagatami to find the answer for herself. This shows that the Buddha's silence was not neglect but a deep teaching. He taught that sometimes we need stillness to listen and understand the true nature of things. A silence in this situation helped Kisagatami realize that her suffering was not unique. Everyone must face loss and death, and accepting this truth is the way to alleviate pain. A silence is not always the silence of rejection or indifference. It can be a tool to help people find answers for themselves, creating space for calm reflection. This story teaches us that sometimes, instead of speaking too much, we need to listen and remain silent to see the truth and find the right path. In our own lives, there are countless moments when silence can be a powerful tool, helping us avoid unfortunate consequences and fostering better understanding. As we reflect on the importance of pause and presence, consider this. How many times have we practiced silence and avoided reacting impulsively, allowing ourselves the space to think, understand, and choose our words wisely? The power of silence often lies in its ability to protect, heal, and bring clarity.